Okay, I'm going to talk about fruit. Now, if we turn quickly, please, to Genesis chapter 1 and verse 28, it talks here about mankind told to be fruitful. If we're there in Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, it says, God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it. And it goes on and talks about, you have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. But I'm going to sort of focus on this word fruitful, and it means to bear fruit, or to be a fruitful branch, or to cause or bear fruit, or to show fruitfulness. So we're in the Lord, and like people of this first creation, we are to be fruitful. Jesus mentioned a number of times about being fruitful and bringing forth fruit, or fruit worthy of repentance. And if we turn please to Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7 verse 15. It says, beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're raving wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? So every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. And he clarifies it a bit. He says a good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. And then he finishes off, he says, wherefore by their fruits you shall know them. He says, you'll know them by their fruits. And this is the Lord's sort of proper test of our characters. He doesn't judge a tree by its leaves, or by its bark, or by its flowers, but by the fruit it produces. Same with us. And we don't look at other people on outwardly appearances, and the Lord doesn't, and the Lord makes it clear that he looks on the inner things of the heart. Not everyone can be as attractive as I am. Okay. But that doesn't matter, and I'm complainable for that. You know, he looks in the heart. Because all those things, the fancy green leaves, you know, the nice bark, it makes the tree look pretty, but it doesn't actually do anything. It's a fruit tree. The fruit trees produce fruit, and that's the real purpose of it. That's what God created fruit trees for. You know? Now, trees are often used in the scriptures to describe people, either individually or as groups, or even in some cases as nations. So, as individuals and as a fellowship, we must make sure we produce fruits, and make sure the Lord knows us by or because of our fruits. Because we can see from the scriptures, we will be known by our fruits. If we turn please to Philippians chapter 1. Philippians chapter 1 and verse 11. He says here, being filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Jesus Christ, unto the glory and praise of God. in Galatians, it says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith." And in Ephesians it says, "For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth." So the Lord talks a lot about fruit. And we'll turn to the parable of the fig tree. And if we turn please to Mark chapter 11. I'm sort of quite keen on fig trees now. I bought 2 of them for our garden. And I'm just waiting for some figs because these plants are still quite young. So that's Mark chapter 11 and verse 12. And it says here, "On the morrow, when they would come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves, he came to it. Happily he might find anything thereon. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of the figs was not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it." We know the story. Later on, they came back and the disciples were astonished that this tree had withered up and died in a very short period of time. Now, the fig tree is a bit of an unusual tree, and one is that the fruit, the flower is inside the fruit instead of on the outside. And that's just a little bit of trivial information there. And normally flowers are pollinated by bees, and then it slowly turns into a seed. The seeds are inside, and it's only a certain type of wasp that can actually burrow into the fig to fertilise it. Fortunately, most figs don't need to be fertilised, so it will still produce figs that are edible. Otherwise, you might be chomping on the odd little wasp. Right. But there's a lot more to the story. The Lord comes up to this fig tree. Now, the other thing about figs is that on some fig trees it actually has fruit on it before the leaves come out. And that's often referred to the first fruits, because they'll often produce 3 crops of figs per season. So Jesus sees this fig tree, it's got leaves on it. Oh, should have some figs. Goes to it, no fruit. And of course, this is not pleasing to him. He's hungry. He expects fruit, nothing. Now, this fig tree was also a symbol of the state of Judah at the time. The Jews, they claimed to be following God. They considered themselves to be God's people. They thought that God only dealt with them. And they really despised all others. They wouldn't even eat with anyone that was not a Jew. But they were hypocritical. They were claiming to be something they were not. Like this fig tree, claiming to be a fruit tree and it has no fruit on it. All leaves, no fruit. Now, anyhow, we'll always have failings. But as long as we realise that. So when we stumble, we can look to the Lord, He'll pick us up, and we walk on. And as long as we know that, as long as we know we're not perfect, not like the Jewish leaders at the time, who thought they were, the Lord will accept us. It's if we claim we're perfect and doing everything correctly, we're in trouble. Because the Lord can't do anything with us in that state. So let's always allow our hearts to be open to the things of the Lord, so the Lord can direct our path. He can bless us, and we'll be fruitful. Now, as we go on, we often may preach the word, but not always see a result. But that doesn't mean that a seed hasn't been planted. And there was a case years ago, I was at home, and the person that reads the electric meter on our property came to our house to check on the meter. We've got a smart meter now, so it doesn't show up anymore. But we're out in the country, so he stopped and we had a bit of a chat. And then he sort of mentioned he'd seen me somewhere before. And so I told him what sort of work I did, and I told him that I was with the fellowship. And he said, "Oh, that's where I've seen you." He'd been invited to an activity in the fellowship. And he still remembered that. Apparently that was about 10 years before. So you never know. If we turn please to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 5. Because preaching the word in the fellowship, it's not necessarily a personal or a thing we do on our own. The Lord's got to be in it, and in a lot of cases the fellowship's in it. If we turn please 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 5, he says, "Who then is Paul, and who's Apollos, but ministers by whom you believe, even as the Lord gave to every man? I've planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase, so that neither he that planteth is anything, neither is he that watereth, but God giveth the increase." We've got a situation here. Once planted, once watered, but it's God that did something. He gives the increase. So we may not always know how fruitful we are, but we've got to remember it's a team effort. And team effort with our brothers and sisters, but with the Lord leading and the Lord blessing the effort. And that will make us fruitful in many ways. So there's a lot to learn here. And if you're like me, you're often a slow learner. You have to have your brothers and sisters around you. We help each other, and there's many cases. Joanna can testify to this, that when she was witnessed to, it was pretty much a team effort. She thought there was probably half our fellowship was planning to meet up with her at various times because she kept running into people from the fellowship. But in the end she was convicted. The Lord touched her heart, and she's still with us today. So let's make sure we're fruitful, but we can only be fruitful if we're doing the things of the Lord with the Lord involved. So I'll leave it there. Amen.